Afternoon, Martin. I think I can see Jamie. I can see.
Yeah. Hi, Simon.
Hi.
Chris has just joined us. Hi, Chris.
Welcome.
How's everybody? How are you, Jonathan?
Yeah, really good, thank you. In these kind of days of doing everything virtually.
I know. Yeah.
Seems to have gone well for considering the first morning of virtual conference.
Yeah, no, really well. Not quite the same as being in Rochdale Town Hall. With all those stained glass windows.
I was going to say, I don't think anything is quite like being in Rochdale Town Hall.
I have been in it, and I'm based in London, but in a past life I was in Rochdale once, and I was in the town hall. I think it's the town hall that you're referring to, and it is a remarkable building. It is one of the most beautiful buildings. I was really taken aback. Really beautiful building.
The council are very lucky in Rochdale because they've got both a beautiful town hall and a really spectacular council office building down by the river as well. So they've done. I mean, there's other parts of wandering around Rochdale that aren't as beautiful, but the council seems to have accumulated all of the shining lights of Rochdale.
Yeah. I think I was with the hi Lucy. I think I was with the council, and then they were like, "Would you like to take a walk down to see the town hall?" And that's where we went. And apparently, one of the things that stood out was that during World War II, they were telling me that the Germans had earmarked the town hall not to be destroyed because they wanted to keep it for themselves, because it was it has its charms, put it that way. It's a remarkable building.
So I don't know, Michael, if we know how many people are going to be joining this session, if we're waiting for many more.
So I think Nicola said there was 20 or so affiliates who had registered for the conference, but it's difficult to know how many will attend this session because obviously the registration is for the whole event rather than specific workshops. So, I mean, I would suggest probably this is it, unless there's any left.
Well, we should probably crack on then. And so, I don't know, did you want to kick off, Michael, or shall I kick off with the first round?
Yeah, sure. I'll kick off if you'd like, Jonathan. That would be helpful. So, Jonathan and I spoke earlier this week, and we basically have set up this affiliate membership. Well, we've tried to sort of give it some more focus because there's been an increasing number of affiliates join the network, which is great, but we've not been interacting as much as what we perhaps should have been or could have been. So we wanted to try and give some more vigor to the group, but we're very conscious we didn't want to increase Nicola's workload. So it has to be on us as members to take the responsibility and to drive it forward. So Nicola suggested that we could have this session as a bit of a meet and greet for affiliates. So we did a rough agenda, Jonathan and I, which we're happy to add anything to or adapt. But we thought initially what would be useful is for each of us to introduce ourselves, including where we're from and why we've joined the CCIN network. So I'll just kick off. So I'm Michael Curnow. I'm Business Development Director at Peopletoo. We've been affiliate members from I think from 2017 for CCIN, so three or 4 years now. And it's been great for us in terms of being able to sort of increase our brand awareness and to understand more about what's going on within some of the councils that we're working with and not working with. I think we've engaged policy labs, and now we're looking to run one ourselves this year to try and shape what we call sort of social outcomes in local government, which again we can discuss. I'm happy to discuss with anyone in more detail at a later point, but it's to move social value away from just being spoken about in a procurement context. So to ensure that local government operates or apply the same criteria to themselves as they do to external commissioners and procurement contracts. So ensure that they are creating apprenticeships and deploying environmental or sustainable business practices in their own operations rather than just focusing on external contracts. But it's a piece of work which we're engaged 3 or 4 councils with, and we're trying to sort of develop some toolkits for services to ensure that social value is optimised within councils as well as externally. It's been a great network for us in terms of making contacts as well. We've got some really useful sponsors and allies out of the network, and it's always useful to see the good practice that's going on in the network. So I think there's 34 councils now, and they're all very open and great at sharing best practice within CCIN. So it's been really valuable. I know some of you are newer, and some of you have been here for a similar amount of time to myself. But Jonathan, would you like to kick off and introduce yourself too?
Yeah, so I'm Jonathan Bland. I'm the Managing Director of Social Business International. My background's really in the social enterprise and cooperative world. But the main thing that I do these days is run something called E3M, which is an initiative around social enterprise innovation and public services. And we run a couple of different networks, and one of which is a sort of network of bold commissioners. And I guess we've been aware of one or two of the cooperative councils doing kind of really interesting and more progressive things, and that's really what kind of drew us into getting involved in the network, in the sense that we're sort of keen to work with people that have got progressive ideas and want to work in different ways, and particularly in partnership with social ventures. And so the connection with the councils network seemed a really good place to start. And so, you know, been involved for a couple of years now, and I'm on the executive oversight committee. There are two kind of bits of the network that kind of oversee various parts of its work. There's the exec oversight committee, and I represent the kind of affiliates, or I was voted in by the affiliates on that group a couple of years ago. And then Michael and Simon are on the values and principles group, so we can talk about that. But yeah, so over to you perhaps then, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Simon Parkinson. I'm currently the Chief Exec at the Workers' Educational Association. So we're the largest charitable provider of community-based adult learning across England and Scotland, with a sister organisation in Wales as well. But prior to this role, I was Chief Exec of the Cooperative College, and that's the main link back into this network. So we've been in the network pretty much from the start. We were one of those core cooperative organisations that the network reached out to at its inception, and the idea was to help them, you know, really live the cooperative values and principles. Hence why, you know, as Jonathan alluded to, I sit on the values and principles board with Michael. I'm vice chair of that board, and you know, representing you guys as affiliates. And then I also sit on EOC, but just as an advisor in terms of more for that cooperative connection. Jonathan's our nominated or balloted sort of rep on that board. So, you know, great that we're growing as a group. You know, I think there are some great opportunities for us to influence, you know, a growing number of you know, forward thinking local authorities and opposition groups and town and parish councils, you know. So I think, you know, as Michael said, it's up to us really, I think, where we drive this, you know, and how we feel we're best placed to play a role in the network. So, you know, hopefully we'll have a good sort of session this afternoon, and then build on it from there. So, you know, look forward to hearing what everybody else is up to. I'm supposed to hand the baton on, shall I? I'm in no particular order across the top. I've got Jamie in my top left, so that's gone Jonathan, Simon, Jamie for me. So
it's the worst part about Zoom, because you'd wait 30 seconds and then 3 people would jump in at the same time. So I think it's easier just to nominate. Thanks for that. My name's Jamie McMahon. I work for a company called Mutual Ventures, and I lead our cooperative work, hence why I'm here today. We're a specialist management consultancy that work across the public sector. We work in NHS, local authorities, and with the third sector. We consider ourselves specialists in creating public service mutuals, alternative delivery models, in particular delivering a couple of government grant funded programs that have helped particularly staff take ownership over the services they provide and spin them out of of the council, a lot of library services, a lot of adult social care providers. We're also particularly interested in strategy, and I think our values and principles underpin cooperation throughout. So that's why we got involved in the network. We formally joined about 6 months ago, but one of our very close partners, Bates Wells, have been members for a long time, and we deliver quite a lot of projects in collaboration with Bates Wells. So really excited to be along, and look forward to, I think for us, we're definitely one of those consultancies where we want to work in collaboration with like-minded people to further the sector and for better society through cooperation, as well as better success for all of us. So really looking forward to working with everyone. I will pick in next on my list is Chris. Over to you.
Thanks. Hi, my name's Chris Abs. I'm Chief Executive of Unlimited Potential. We're a community cooperative, legally a community benefit society, based in Salford. I suppose there's 3 reasons why we're an affiliate. One, because we are a cooperative. We've worked with a number of the councils who are members of CCIN on various projects, and we specialise in what we call social innovation for happiness. So in essence, we work alongside local people and communities to produce new solutions that solve problems for large organisations, including local authorities, around that. So been interested for quite a while in what the CCIN has done, and similarly interested in opportunities to work with people of a similar mind. So that's us. And I'm going to nominate Lucy.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy Trueman. I'm the Managing Director of Trueman Change. We are a small business based in the Northwest. We're based in Lancashire. And we help organisations, public sector organisations, and the majority are councils, because that's my background. We help them to drive change, and we probably work at that kind of practical level. So I guess a lot of you guys will be working at that sort of strategic, figuring out what the change needs to be. We tend to actually get in there and help them deliver it, because what we found is, probably due to austerity, a lot of public sector organisations have lost really good quality people that are kind of good generic project managers, change managers. I'm really passionate about local government. I'm really passionate about frontline workers, and we sort of came across CCIN fairly accidentally. I think we just saw an event and then, sort of got to know the organisation, and I just felt that it was very aligned with our values of working with people at all levels in an organisation to figure out and design and deliver good quality change. So that's really why we joined. As well as Trueman Change, I'm also a board member of an organisation called People's Powerhouse, which fellow Northerners on the call may have heard of. That's a group that are basically challenging the Northern Powerhouse concept to make it more people focused. And again, for the same reasons, I just came across them and was like, that's definitely people I want to be involved with, because they believe the same things as me. So I'm really open to collaboration, and actually there's a couple of people on the call who I already know we have collaborated with in the past, so I'm always open to conversations there, and just kind of looking forward to learning from you guys as well as other members of CCIN. And there's a kitten probably going to walk across my screen at some point. Benjamin, I'll come to you just because I know you.
Thanks, Lucy. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody. So I have 2 hats on today. The Public Service Transformation Academy, which is a social enterprise not-for-profit that delivers the Cabinet Office Commissioning Academy and all kinds of place-based systems leadership, building up skills, capability for transformation stuff, and has been going for 4 years. And Red Quadrant, which is a network consultancy, also an SME that's been going for 11 years now, and I've been in local government and public services and the like for many many years, 23 I think. And so I don't know, I missed the question, my apologies. I was arguing with the RAC because my car's broken down in a no parking zone, and it's now estimating 5 hours before they get here. I mean, it's been 4 so far, so we'll see. But you seem to be talking about CCIN. I love the idea of CCIN. I love the idea of councils being more cooperative. I think that cooperatives have a huge role to play in public service delivery and in community and citizen outcomes, which is what I really believe in. So I'd love to play a bigger role and get engaged in some work through CCIN. We've been affiliates for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now. So I'm intrigued to see where it goes next and try to get an understanding of the kind of state of the cooperative councils nation today and the next few days.
That leaves you, Martin. Do you want to jump in?
All right. Yeah, I'll jump in. So I know a few of you already. So my name is Martin Connolly, and I work for Value Match. We are probably the most recent member to join the CCIN. And basically at Value Match, it's really a very much a values-led organization. So I'm lead consultant there, and I also sit on the Council of Governors for my local NHS trust. In terms of Value Match, we do consulting, bid management, all that kind of stuff. But rather than talk about Value Match, the other actually thing I should say about Value Match is that we have a foundation as well, which is a charity that we've set up to support civil society, social enterprises, and a portion of all profits go back into helping them tender, providing resource. So if anybody's on a social enterprise or a charity or something like that, feel free to get in touch with me, and I'll connect you to Joe, who heads up and founded the foundation. But we advocate for basically shared value creation, and we just want to be connected to purpose-driven and values-focused companies, and that was the main driver for us in joining the CCIN. And I think I'm going to hand over to, is it Chris? I think is the last one.
Oh, I'm done unless you want to hear.
Done, sorry.
I think that was
we're all done. We're all done.
Yeah, no, I think that was everyone. I realised I actually didn't introduce Peopletoo. I just went straight into talking about the fact that we were members. So similar to a lot of people on the call, we are a local government focused consultancy. Similar to yourself, Lucy, we're focused on delivering the change as well as the strategy. Our values and principles very much aligned to CCI. Co-production is the heart of everything that we do, and there was a lot of synergy between the two organisations. So that was part of the reason why we joined. We're very much focused on operational services, so from social care to environmental services, waste transport, all those sort of frontline local government services. I've posted in the chat on the side, which hopefully everyone can see, a agenda, which is what we knocked together. So next one that we put on our list.
I haven't got it, Michael. It might have been posted before I arrived. If you can repost. The problem with Zoom is it doesn't keep the chat before you came in.
It's the same as WhatsApp, isn't it? As you said in the when you joined. Let me just repost it. But the next one on the list was around what we can do as affiliates to support the network and the CCIN councils. We covered a couple, didn't we, Jonathan, when we spoke? So we said around supporting the policy labs and the research pieces that they do and helping to shape those. And then also we wanted to talk about the DPS framework. I don't know if all of you are members of the framework, but obviously you have to undertake a competitive bid process to get on. And a few of us have done that. And we wanted to talk about the frameworks. We're not sure in its current format how well it's working because there isn't a ton coming through it. And it's actually quite complicated to get on. I felt it was, Jonathan. I don't know if you felt the same. But we can come back to the second one. I think firstly, should we just talk about the sort of, well, does anyone else have any ideas other than those two which we just touched on as to how we can support the network? And then we can delve into some more detail with regards to each of those.
I suppose it might be worth saying just in terms of a bit of background, particularly for anybody that's kind of, just recently joined. The two kind of organs of governance, if you like, the overall kind of network is principally controlled by the member councils. So they have a kind of majority say in, what is done, how things happen. They put the majority of the money into the CCIN. I don't know what the turnover is now, but it's kind of gone up. So it's they put in several £1,000s each to be a member. And they have, I think, the majority on the two kind of organs run in parallel. So the executive oversight committee kind of approves the budget every year. It approves the kind of strategic direction of what the network does. It approves things like the kinds of communications activities for reaching out. There's a lot of attending different party conferences and local government conferences and things like that, and Nicola supports that as a sort of membership and communications person who's contracted to actually do the sort of donkey work. Sharon Taylor from Stevenage is the chair, and then I think it's Chris Penberthy from Plymouth is the vice chair, and then there are one or two other councillors that are sort of actively involved in it. That it's not got a kind of legal status, but it is recognised as an official body within the LGA. And Oldham Council sort of act as the accountable body, and they do all of the sort of back office, looking after the money and making sure that everything's compliant. And they also run the dynamic purchasing system for the framework. And the EOC meets on a quarterly basis. And then the Values and Principle Board meets kind of in between times, and is, if you like, I see it, as holding the sort of moral compass for keeping the cooperative councils focused on, really applying cooperative values in what they do and keeping the kind of purpose. But there's quite a lot of detail work that you guys do on that. I don't know if you'd like to share a bit more about that, Michael or Simon.
Happy to if you want, because I think it goes in to the question that you and Michael worked up. It seems to me, and they did a good piece of strategic work, I think, at EOC level when we were in Cardiff, sort of 18 months ago, probably now. And that's the first time I can remember where there's been any attempt to sort of put some sort of strategic thinking around it. But what I think where the V&P spend the vast majority of their time is looking at these policy lab approaches. And this is where the majority of the members' money gets redistributed as well. So full member councils are invited. So they'll set a theme, or a couple of themes, and then full member councils are invited to bid against the themes in terms of the policy lab and really take that thinking and demonstrate how a cooperative approach to a policy area might make a positive difference, has made a positive difference. And I think increasingly they're looking for the right types of affiliates to get involved in those pieces of work as well. So I think I know Michael is probably best to take over at this point, because I know Peopletoo have almost bucked the trend a little bit and said, well, rather than try and draw down members' money, because that's your money, we'll put some of our own time and resource into it. If we, just in a way of getting one of the policy labs that they were particularly interested in off the ground. So I think it is an area that is worth us exploring as a group, about how we fully engage or increase our engagement in those policy labs, because I think that's the main day-to-day work of the network at the moment.
And can you tell us a bit more about them, Simon or Michael? We've seen a little bit of stuff go by. Most of the things, to be honest, that we've seen from CCIN as a whole seem to be unrealistic in terms of expectations and budget. particularly the policy lab work. I'm seeing a few people nodding here. So it may just be that they have those expectations, and that's the way it works, and that's the way it's always going to be. Yeah, I wanted to check in on that, but also find out more about them in general.
I think there's two different things, isn't there? There's the policy labs, which they drive, which we can feed into and input into, which there isn't necessarily paid like commissioned work. So they do this. I mean, this time they were heavily focused on health and social care, and lead member councils bid for some of the money, and they then will lead the program. We can, as affiliate members, input and provide our expertise as support. But then you're talking about the specific opportunities which come out, which we can bid on as well, are you, Ben?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not in a position to work unless we've got money, because I'm funding the PSTA, and we're not. Yeah, we just can't afford to give to. We're not a charity.
No, which is completely fair. And there is those pockets of work which you're referring to, which come out, which we can bid on. And I would tend to agree with you that the budgets for those is realistic, and it is more aimed at the type of organisations which might be a one-man band rather than an organisation which has overheads and costs. It's more aimed at perhaps one individual. I think it's difficult because they're not, in terms of the budgets they have, they're not huge. It's not the size of a council. I mean, they get, I think, how much do they get per annum for a member council? Is it 10 grand or something like that? Something like that. And there's obviously they do have some costs, and the costing of Nicola or whatever to run the network. So you're right, the budgets have been a challenge, and I think that's some feedback which I've given before to Nicola, is that we couldn't deliver what they wanted. I'm happy to input and give a bit of our time up, but in terms of actually the level of resource they would need to deliver some of these projects, we wouldn't be able to bid for those. It's not economical. And I take your point, and we've fed that back to them before. But unfortunately, as affiliate members, it's not.
No. Well, I mean, that's the question then is there ever going to be an opportunity to do commercially viable transformational work for the member organisations? If not, we're content to input when we can and try and do some good for the benefit of local government, but it becomes a very, very different proposition. Unfortunately, we're a social enterprise and an enterprise, so that's what it is, you know.
I think that's the challenge, isn't it? I think it goes back to the conversation about the framework before, is thus far we haven't seen anything coming from the member councils via the framework to try and recruit, to use the framework to recruit cooperative organisations to support their cooperative agenda. We've only seen it and I think we understand and appreciate that if things are coming from the CCIN to support the CCIN, they're going to be low budget. And then there's a conversation about whether you treat it a little bit semi pro bono, semi commercial, semi supporting a good cause. But actually, what we need to follow through behind that is the member councils putting proper transformation work through the framework, rather than going to MCF and getting the usual faces, giving them the usual product.
I would agree. I think that's the opportunity, is changing the mindsets of those member councils to actually use this framework that they've set up. Because we said this, didn't we, Jonathan? What's the point in setting up this DPS if they're still going to go through the traditional procurement routes, whether it's ESPO or Blue, or wherever else, for consultancy or whatever else it might be? There's no point.
I wonder whether there's anything, and I know at the moment there's a lot of, Nicola does a lot of work with the officers, but I wonder whether particularly the procurement officers don't yet maybe appreciate I mean this more, I'm saying this more colloquially than I mean, but they probably think there's a collection of single-handers and small, or actually what they've got on that DPS now is some really high quality organizations, not just the ones around the table, Red Quadrant, things like that. They've got really high quality organizations through that. And maybe the procurement officers they see MCF or Bloom, as you say, as rigor, but then they don't fully understand the quality of support they can get from the DPS, and whether we could do something to just present more to those officers all of our skills and expertise might make them think, oh, you know what, I'm not going to get second-rate quality if I go through that framework. I'm going to get top quality organizations, but ones that, as I said, share our values more.
Aligned to the values and principles completely. You're right. Yeah. No, I think there's a conversation to be had there. Maybe that's something we should feedback coming out of this session, is that there's an opportunity for member councils to use that framework that they've set up, because they have actually got some good organizational there which align to their way of doing things. So I think that's a really good point. On the wider policy lab stuff, the one that we've done, it's something that we feel passionate and strongly about on social outcomes, and we wanted to run this project, and we just felt CCIN was the right home for it, and they're very open and flexible to doing those type of things and working in partnership with you. But that just comes back to that point you raised before, Ben, which is it's not a commercial opportunity or anything like that. It's more just if it's a certain agenda or something that you want to push and raise in the sector, which you think is for the benefit of the sector, they're happy to work with you on that. That's a sort of separate point.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is, everybody that's involved is kind of value driven, but in terms of the affiliates, tends to be running a business of one shape or another. And I guess it's about, you talked about the benefits of being involved, Michael, through raising the profile and through engagement, and the kind of quid pro quo of that is putting in a bit of effort and time when there's something that resonates with what is important to you as a business. But I guess the real question is in terms of the link between being able to do some serious chunky bits of work, and whether that framework is gonna, I'm not sure, I'm not aware of anybody that's actually done anything of any scale through
speaking personally, it doesn't necessarily have to be chunky bits of work. It just has to be finance pieces of work. We regularly do 5, 10, 15,000 pounds pieces of work, and are happy to continue to do so, even though those are always the hardest to win and the hardest to deliver and the biggest overspend and the biggest pain in the arse in the end, especially when they're motivated by some kind of actual real value driver, if you see what I mean. So small pieces of work are fine. I don't know about others, but I think it's been a very, very tough 6 months, and even if we were ever in a position to do stuff pro bono, we're certainly not now. We don't have any funding of any kind, so I think that's probably quite common. Yeah. So I think this is a good conversation to just check in on for me.
No, definitely. I will take the point about I think the DPS framework. It is something that needs to be addressed, because why would we waste our time and effort to get onto it if it's not going to be anything which we can ever bid on that comes to it? But no, I know I take your point as well. It's the landscape has changed over the last year or so as well, in terms of the type of pro bono work you may have been able to provide is not going to be realistic at the present time. I think a lot of businesses are in a similar situation and struggling. So, and surely the CCIN should be trying to support businesses which have their way of thinking.
And to be fair, we are as Red Quadrant on MCF2 and ESPO, where we're just rebidding and have to work with Bloom, unfortunately. Speaking, assuming this is all very confidential.
Just for full disclosure, I'm ex-Bloom, but
some of the best people are ex-Bloom, Martin.
The ones that escaped, Martin. That's the key thing with Bloom, I think.
I fully agree.
It's fine, and we get work for them, so we have to be nice to them. And I'm either two-faced or something. It just costs the client 5% more. That's the But so I would just like to extend the offer to all other affiliates. We're extremely happy to partner and to subcontract at sort of de minimis cut if there's something that you can only do through those frameworks that we can facilitate access to. So if that's ever useful, then and you're not on them already, then I'm really happy to try and do that as well.
Can I just add, we're in a similar position in terms of, we can't really afford to offer lots of pro bono work, and certainly not from my staff perspective, but I don't mind doing a little bit of maybe critical friend role or something where I'm not taking on the work, but perhaps offering just little bits of advice and help or mentoring here and there. That's something I can offer on a personal level, but it is difficult in the current climate to offer kind of delivery of work on a free basis. I don't know if that's something that we can feed back.
There is something in that, I think, Lucy, because you're right, and I think we can certainly take back the DPS piece, and I don't think it'll come as a surprise certainly to the values and principles sort of committee that we need to see some movement through that framework. we need to see some movement, so that people understand what it's there for, because actually that then is, if that was working well as that supplier contractor relationship, then actually it'd really redefine this group, because the affiliate, being an affiliate member isn't going to drive you business, that's through the DPS. But actually, so what is the role of the affiliate member group for CCIN as a network? And I think as there's been a growth of town and parish councils and opposition groups, I think there is a role, and we've spoke very, very briefly about this, about a buddying system for some of the smaller sort of local authorities or some of the opposition groups with organisations that can help them. And for small amounts of funding, CCIN could fund some of that time. So you're right, your example about mentoring or coaching, that might sit better in an arrangement with one of the smaller town and parish councils that could be funded through CCIN. So I think there are options for some small pieces of paid work directly through the network, in terms of supporting the growth and development of the network. But actually that, what has to go hand in hand with that is a reinvigoration of the DPS. And one of the other things we were asked to consider as an affiliate group, which Michael put at the bottom as an additional item, was whether we're in a position as an affiliate group to offer in any benefits to full members, regardless of the contracting piece. So for somebody like the WEA, the win-win for me there is we're a membership organisation. So there is the option for me to say, actually, any employee of a CCIN council or the organisation itself, we can offer you a discount in terms of membership. So there might be other ways of sort of offering those, tying in those relationships and us growing on the back of them, rather than just the purely commissioned work through the DPS. So I think that's something we could take away as well, Lucy.
Yeah,
I think there's some. Sorry, Lucy, go on.
I was going to say, we don't really have like a membership in our organisation. We have thought about maybe producing like online learning and charging for it, but the events that we run at the moment are free anyway. But yeah, if we do go down the road of producing a little bit of online learning around change management, that's certainly something we could look at offering at a discounted price. Sorry,
I'd be up for that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say for us as well, there's the bit about particularly when they're looking for case studies and best case scenarios. I know at the moment they go through the member councils, but actually those of us who are working across the country might have examples that either aren't from a member council or actually just from a bit of the member council that's not engaged in the CCIN. I'm thinking particularly of some of the organisations, ironically, we're talking about Rochdale, like Possibilities, which have been quite a long time out of the council, but are doing fantastic cooperative stuff. So just using us as a resource to pull in more case studies that might just add to the evidence base, but also might be links for the CCIN to councils that are doing cooperative work, but just aren't members. So making sure we're kind of looped in on those call for information and it's not just going to the members, I think would be, again, something we can help do and could be pointed our way.
I guess listening to what everybody's said, I guess the question that's in my head is, how do we clarify what's our relationship with the CCIN, and within that, how much of our relationship is reactive to the CCIN and the councils, and how much should we take a more proactive role? And because I don't know that much, I don't know if that's ever been sort of considered by the CCIN itself. What do they want the relationship with us to be?
I think that's a very good question, Chris, in the sense of the way that it's evolved since I've been involved, which is about 2 years now. The affiliates bit has always been something that's been pretty much on the side. There was a sort of change to actually have a spot on the executive committee and to bring people into the Values and Principles Board, which wasn't there before. But it's not really, I don't think, very strategically kind of thought through in the sense of it being stated anywhere about what's the plan, as it were. I mean, you know, in a way, you mentioned that the meeting in Cardiff, that we had a meeting in, I can't remember where it was, somewhere else as well once, or maybe no, that was in Cardiff actually, or in Bristol. We had actually a meeting, a sort of a meeting in Bristol where we actually did some strategy work. Maybe it was a year ago, last January.
Yeah, I think I meant Bristol, Jonathan, you're right.
It was Bristol. Yeah, it was Bristol.
And that was a kind of first sort of take, but there's not really been anything, you know, there's kind of action plans that kind of follow on from that. But in terms of seeing how the affiliates kind of fit in, or how they could, you know, provide best engagement with the network in doing something that's, you know, not just kind of reactive, or, you know, showing up, or, you know, responding to things. So and I guess that comes back to the bit about the framework as well, and the, you know, what's, you know, everybody on this call, I think, is involved in promoting innovation and, you know, different ways of doing things that are, you know, better. And what's the kind of role of bringing that, not just in terms of case studies, but in terms of an overall approach to supporting the network?
So I guess what I'm wondering, even just within the conversation that we've had in the last 45 minutes or so, is if we could formulate something collectively, which is a sort of, here's our offer, here's our asks. Given all the pressures that the local authorities are under, they're not likely to come and do that for us, but whether or not we could put something together to say, collectively, this is what we can offer to you. So whether that's things like case studies, critical friendship, all that sort of thing. And this is what we would like from you. So things like more active use of the DPS framework, or discussions with procurement officers, and that sort of thing. And without creating big long documents, but I'm thinking of something we could put on one side of A4, just to say, you know, is this the type of thing we're talking about? What do you think? So even just to provoke the discussion around that, so it feels more like a genuinely mutual type of relationship.
I think that's a really good idea, and I know you touched on procurement, and I'm aware that there will be other people in the group right now who know much more than me about procurement, but it does feel like that's often a barrier. And actually, them having a group of, you know, potential suppliers that they can have open conversations with about, you know, these are the problems we're trying to solve, how might we go about tendering them, I think would benefit not just us as suppliers, but also the members. And I'm sure there's other people who know much more than me about that kind of work.
Yeah, I would completely echo that. I think that's a really good point, Chris. Because it would be great if for a tangible to come out of this, for us to formulate what exactly we can, as a collective, offer to the councils, and to follow up with what Lucy said, what support we can give, because especially when dealing with procurements, I think that's going to be vital, really, because they can sometimes see themselves sitting in the middle and not sure where we would fit in, when we might be trying to, you know, the stakeholder might be somebody sitting in, you know, people, a place, or, you know, any other section of the council. So we just need to be careful how we're talking to procurement, and how exactly CCIN is offering support as a critical friend, and also what asks we would have of them, as you said.
Oh, that's really good. And one of the points there is that there's a lot of member engagement in CCIN. Obviously, it's a member-led body, and that is not usually an effective mechanism for engaging the kind of support that we offer. I don't know about the experience of others here, but in fact, it generally feels like there's something almost inappropriate and unwelcomed by officers if members seek to involve an outside organisation in the operation of the council. So I think making that connection through to officers clear is maybe a small but important part of that.
I suppose, Michael and Simon, in terms of your take on the kind of internal workings of things and how you'd actually kind of raise this or kind of make space for it, because the meetings that I attend have, you know, fairly kind of long agendas that are very much driven by the kind of interests of the councillors, and it's the councillors who are the kind of controllers of what goes on, working with kind of Nicola as the kind of main person supporting them. And then there is a kind of officer network that meets and discusses things, you know, but it's for officers. So I haven't been involved in any of that. But, you know, it strikes me that there's a thing about how to actually kind of, well, move this forward, but also, you know, where is the spot for the exchange?
Yeah. There's two. I think we have got an opportunity, and I think Chris's approach in terms of our offer and our ask, I think we can make space on the next values and principles agenda for it, because there was two outstanding actions for Michael and I from the last meeting, which, you know, which we said we'd use some of this time to discuss. That was this notion of, as members, as affiliate members, what benefit can we bring to either individual member or member councils or the network as a whole? So that we've talked about that. That's the Chris's part of the offer. And then actually the other thing was, should there be any sort of conditions placed on who can be an affiliate member? So the DPS is an open, competitive, you know, purchasing system, but actually, how do we, without this becoming an exclusive clique, how do we make sure that affiliate members do all share the same values and principles that we've talked about? So again, I think that we could use that space on as actions from the last meeting to say, well, actually, here's the output from our first initial get together as an affiliates. And we can think about what we can frame up as the member benefits. But I would say, therefore, that one of the asks then is for, as Benjamin says, not for councillors and members to instruct their officers to commission work from us, because that would be seen as inappropriate. But actually, they could, as the network, say, actually, we think there's real value in the affiliate group meeting on a regular basis with the officers group to work out how best, you know, procurement might work between, you know, DPS. So I think we could easily frame that as part of the ask back. We can bring these benefits, we'll bring this, but one of the asks back is, you know, you have to help us tie this in with the officers group, so that we're just aware of what we can and can't do with each other going forward.
I think building on that as well, giving us access to thinkers in a way that can help inform the work we're doing. So you've got council chief executives there that, you know, I'd love to, you know, to find a council chief executive who would just give the affiliate group half an hour to talk, not only to talk about the issues they're facing, but to talk about them in a way that's relevant to us and the kind of the perspective we're bringing. So, you know, we're sitting in, and I'm sure many of the same, sitting in writing proposals and strategy about COVID response and how you can progress that, but actually to listen to a chief executive for half an hour talk about that was slanted towards us would be a real value to us as affiliate members, and not necessarily create work for us, like winners work, but actually inform our thinking. And that links to me as well about, you know, we all know that the CCIN is an apolitical organization, but with a political bent to it. If you did a Venn diagram, there's a big crossover. Actually, some of us probably have better links into government than some of the member councils right now, considering the current colour of the government. Actually, one of the offers that we can give as affiliate members is we can help inform government policy. So as I said before, we deliver the mutual support programme. I think whatever if you know the mutual support program, I think we would also always agree there could be a more cooperative angle to public service mutual as well. We'd love to work with the CCIN to come up with some reasoned pushes that we could use up through our networks to influence government to make that happen. So again, I think that's another offer from us, and I know other colleagues around the table be in a similar position. Our networks might reach into areas that the CCIN doesn't, just because of the skewing that it has.
I think that's a really good idea, and I think maybe the conversation we need to have is it's not particularly about procurement as such. I think it is that what problems do they have? What problems do we have? How do we, how can we shape our thinking? And a couple of years ago, I went on some just generic bid writing training and was sat next to some people from an office furniture company. And I was just like, my God, I wish that I sold office furniture, because it's like, this is the size of the desk. And actually tendering is really tough, because if the organisation knew what they needed, they probably wouldn't be getting consultants in. So there is something about them having access to a group of people in a friendly way to talk about what their challenges are and what possible solutions can be to inform how they might commission going forward. I think that's massively beneficial to both sides.
I know Benjamin said pro bono is not something we can offer, but I'm sure we would all offer a pro bono course for any commissioner in any council on how to write tender documents and specifications and how to make them proportionate to the size of the piece of work that you're doing. I think we'd all volunteer to do that. So if they want that, that's not a problem.
I like that approach. I'm beginning to think that maybe we've got a distinction. So that whoever signed up on the DPS, effectively that is the procurement route. But potentially what we could offer as a group of affiliates is that more sort of problem solver, critical friend type of role, and maybe that's a way of sort of presenting ourselves around that. And certainly with some of the stuff that that my organisation does when we're working with statutory bodies, councils and others, is starting from that point of view of, tell me what your really difficult problems are, the ones that you're never going to tender and procure because you think they're too difficult. And potentially what we can do is offer different ways of solving those problems, and maybe even drawing resources in from places that councils can't get their hands on, where we can take sort of bigger risks than a statutory body can, and offer sort of innovative solutions to some of their most difficult issues. And we find that often gets a really positive response, because it's not about pitching and tendering and that sort of things. It's much more about listening to really what their issues are, and then seeing if we can come up with solutions. And often if we can do that, they can magically find money to do that. That doesn't require a procurement process as well. So I'm wondering if we can frame the affiliates group in a slightly different way from whoever's on the DPS framework.
That sounds very sensible. And I agree that kind of work, that kind of conversation is immediately rewarding itself in terms of learning, and you might actually, make a difference there in the room. So that doesn't feel like pro bono work that's a kind of slog and a cost, and it's a lot easier to do, I think, that kind of engagement. And as Lucy said, it's not an ongoing commitment. It's a one-off, have an engaging conversation that could lead to something, but anyway, will give you good learning. So I'm sure all of the affiliates will be pretty interested in that. I certainly would.
So
Okay.
we're heading towards 1:15, which is our kind of stop time. Michael, and Simon, do you feel we've covered off enough of what we were looking to try and get a sense of, feedback from people? And
yeah, I think so. I think there's been some really good conversation and some good points we can take back to VMP and to ESC respectively, and then probably feedback to you guys at some point once we've had some conversations.
Yeah, I think so as well. And just so the group know, Jonathan and Michael put all the work into this session. was a little bit negligent in the time that I spent in the lead up to this, and for that I'm happy to just, I've been making some notes, I'm happy to just dump them onto a side of A4 in under just those two headings that Chris has offered us. What might the benefits be and what might our asks be, and so it'll just be a bullet point list for people to then sort of, you know, throw some proper work at. And the last thing for me was that communication piece, because, you know, Jonathan, Michael, and myself, you know, we want to make sure that now this is a growing and diverse group of organisations. How do we get your voice heard at VMP and EOC? So there's something about us making sure, and Nicola's quite good with agendas, isn't she, guys? So as the agenda comes out, how do we sort of pick the pertinent points out of that, and either through the WhatsApp group or even maybe through a regular sort of Zoom call the week before a values and principles committee, do we spend 40 minutes saying this is the opportunity under this item and this item? Can we try and get some of these key messages sort of, you know, inserted into the meeting? So we could think about that as well in terms of how we keep this dialogue going, if people think that's useful.
I found this session really useful, so I'm more than happy to do this on a more regular basis. I think it's good for just, you know, from a networking point of view, and also just to meet other people that are in the same world. And I think by doing something together and more frequently, that almost strengthens that offer of, we are an established group of people here that you can come and kind of do sense check and test our thinking, and we're happy to do that. So I'm more than happy to keep this conversation going.
That's great. Sounds like then we've got a plan. Is there anything else that anybody wants to kind of chip in, you know, before we finish? I see, Benjamin, you've moved from having your lovely tree to having your other screen behind you.
Somebody else has logged in as me in the meeting that I was supposed to be in at 1 o'clock. That's why. It's a surprising side effect.
Brilliant.
No more comments for me. I think that was a really good conversation. It was really nice to be practical, Darren. And if there's anything I can do to help, you know, contribute moving forward, just I think, speaking for myself, it needs to be really clear. Like, do this by this date to make it a lot easier to do with all the pressures that are on at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Great. Well, from my point, it's been really great to see you all, and see you again soon.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, everyone. Really useful.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.